All right, everyone. I'm excited to introduce my next guest. Husband, father, producer, storyteller, actor, beloved as Israel from the TV show Daniel Boone, also author of Growing Up Israel. Million credits to his name, but we're going to jump right in. Welcome to the show, Darby Hinton. Hey.
Hey, thank you very much. Thank you.
So, what is it like just walking around life as an icon?
I don't know. When I get to that status, I'll let you know, okay? You'll be the first one I call. It's interesting. Obviously, when I was a kid, that show was very popular. Back in a time when you only had four choices, ABC, NBC, CBS, and KCOP that played reruns. So we had 30 million people tuning in. And if they were watching TV, there was usually a 1 out of 3 or 4 chance that they were watching our show. So yeah, when I was young, I got recognized a lot. Fortunately, I had a strong family unit. I was brought up in the business, a lot of business icon. I had icons around. I mean, Charlton Heston was my godfather. That's an icon. Jane Russell was my sister's godmother. That's another icon. It was fun. I had fun. I'm still having fun.
As a kid, we'll skip around a bit. So you're Israel, you're on Daniel Boone, and 30 million people are watching, and you're 5, 6 when it first started?
5.5, 6 by the time the show aired.
So how aware of all this are you? Like maybe people are noticing you that, but like the entire country basically knows who you are. I mean, it's not something that happens to everyone.
I know. My mom tried to explain it to me. I remember a couple of times. And when you do get to know this, I was very lucky. I got to go off in the summers of the hiatus when we weren't working to places like Six Gun Territory, Ghost Town in North Carolina, Frontierland, Tweetsea Railroad, all these places that I would go and make a personal appearance. I particularly got to do it there. I mean, there were other places I would go, but those were my favorites. Just like Knott's Berry Farm here in LA, they actually had gunfights in the old West Town. And they had the bad guys come in and rob the bank and all. And so I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll sit there and sign my name a few hundred times if you let me be in the gunfights. And they let me start off, like I said, I started going there 6.5, I guess by then it was coming out. And I started off as, Billy the Kid with the 22. But over all those years and into my teens, I finally, got to be the guy with 245s and a 12-barrel sawed-off shotgun. And I just had a blast. But that's where you really got to meet all the people, because they would come to see you. And then afterwards, you'd sit and talk with them, sign autographs and do that. But like I said, the one way my mom tried to explain it to me, which I don't think I fully grasped until I was older, landing in a plane. But when we would fly back in, she'd say, you see all those antennas out there on tops of all the roof? You go into those living rooms every week. What do you mean? But yeah, it's amazing. I love the time I got to grow up in this business. I would hear a lot of older actors, well, back in the golden days of show business, but show business in the 70s was pretty fun.
That whole period, late 60s, 70s, it seems to be something that's in the back of everyone's heads and just kind of stays there. There was something about all the things that were being done during those time frames, like every classic show, everything. So it was a good time.
It was the make love, not war. I think we could use some more of that, actually.
Absolutely. Was it when people met you when you're 6 or 7, 8, as you kind of, are they meeting Israel? Like, do they have, are the expectations meeting? Like, is it weird for you? Like, I'm Darby. You know what I mean? And like they're meeting you and they're like, oh my God, I'm talking to the guy. It's a weird dynamic, especially during those times when 30 million people is a lot. So it's like, it's different than now. Now maybe a couple million people see something or something like that. And, there, that's like almost like you said, it was like 1 in 3 people are going to go, hey, they're either screaming Darby or Israel, right?
And there were a couple of times, everybody tells me I look like him. The only time I feel it really got me in trouble was when I would visit places like Mexico. And the young kids there would recognize me and they'd run up and they'd start talking to me in Spanish. And I'm still learning my Spanish today. And I certainly didn't know any back then. And then they would start getting all mad at me like I'm this stuck-up kid that won't talk to them. Because when I went into their living room, I was dubbed, usually by a young girl, I guess, to get the high voice, but I was dubbed, so I was speaking fluent Spanish. So then they'd see me on the street and I wouldn't talk to them, and they'd be like, oh, you know. And I was like, well, how do they even, because some of them came up, you could tell they, you know, weren't from the wealthiest families, and they would actually sit outside the TV store and look through the window and watch. And it was quite a lot of fun.
I was like, oh, wow, your words match your lips in person.
Yeah, you know, back then I think they ignored a bunch of stuff like that because most everything they watched, the lips didn't match.
That is funny, though. Yeah, you're right. They would hear you in Spanish and then have that expectation, though. Back then, TV was magic, right?
Spanish, Japanese. Yeah, I heard my voice dubbed all over the world.
Okay, so let's go back for a second. So your dad...
Back younger than 5. Okay, go ahead.
I think you got into it when you were 6 months. They threw you as a baby into Playhouse 90. I'm sure you didn't sign the contract.
I don't know. Maybe I did. Paw print or something. I don't know.
But your dad was a famous actor. He died very young in a plane crash. How much of it were you exposed to or knew about in terms of being part of this kind of celebrity royalty? Like
at 6 months?
Well, none. But I mean, like as you kind of got older, right? By the time you got to Daniel Boone, like how much of it were you kind of aware of? Back then, right? You'd have to go to the movies, right? It's not like now where I could just watch something on.
Well, like I say, I grew up around all the Hollywood people, and I was born in Santa Monica. I grew up in Bel Air. I mentioned some of the relatives. I mean, the friends and stuff, they came up to my house also because my mom threw outrageous wild parties that were a lot of fun. Theme parties. Like, you know, for my sister's birthday, she saw the little elephant when it was on the I Love Lucy show come into the living room and stuff. And she thought, oh, that would be fun for a party. So for my sister's birthday, she did a whole Circus Boy party. And Circus Boy was on with Mickey DeLenz at the time. And, you know, a lot of the stars. And the problem was the party wasn't for about, 4 or 5 months off. And that 4 or 5 months later, you'd be surprised how big little elephants grow. And they brought him in a big truck and put him in the front yard. And he pulled up about every tree and planting and everything he could find as far as, they let him go sometimes. But those are the kind of wild parties and theme parties that she would throw. So we had a lot of fun. And like I say, I grew up in the business as far back as I can remember. You know, some of my earliest memories are things that happened to me on the set. Brothers Grimm, the first AD saying, now, don't look up at the snow machine, okay? There's going to be snowing on you, but don't look up at it. So, of course, you look up at it. And then the nurse is pulling these plastic flakes out of your eyes.
Oh, man. Right. That's the last thing you tell a kid, right? Don't do this. So what's the connection with Charlton Heston? Like was he friends with?
My mom went to Northwestern and she introduced Lydia and Chuck. And, you know, they were good friends, and that's it. She was worried because, like I said, my dad died when I was just a little over a year old. And she was a single mom. I had 2 older sisters. And, you know, she wanted a lot of male influence in my life. So I guess she thought having Moses as a godfather was a good idea.
There's worse ideas.
And to balance it out, I will say, like I said, she wanted a lot of male influence. I actually do have 2 godfathers. And the other was Winthrop Rockefeller, who was only 10 years older than I was. So, yeah, I got to spend a lot more time with him. And he was wonderful. Unfortunately, he left us too soon. But that was my other godfather.
All right. So you had 2 pretty cool godfathers. So were you always telling me, oh, Moses is my godfather? Was that like a flex?
No, only recently do these things sink in.
Every little detail. It's great.
And you have to remember those 6 years that I was on doing Boone, you know, if we weren't filming out at the Malibu Ranch and we were filming on the Fox lot, when I went to lunch, I went to everybody working at 20th Century Fox, some of the, you know, biggest stars of the time. But the first one I was really impressed to work with, Mr. Ed. Now there was a big star. That was great. And I remember when they called me in to do it, I was like so excited. I was probably 4 or 5, maybe, no, I don't know, but around 4, certainly long before the Boone show. But I read the script and it said, okay, and then you have to kick Wilbur. I'm like, I don't want to kick Wilbur. I like Wilbur. He's nice. Like, oh, no, no. So when I was in makeup that morning, and getting ready and everything, they brought the prop guy in and he showed me the metal shin guard. It's going to be strapped to his shin so that when you kick him, it won't hurt. Don't worry. Because remember, back then, no tennis shoes. These were, wood hard-soled shoes. So, of course, we go on set and all there, and there's Mr. A, and he comes in, and we're doing a rehearsal, and I love it. And he said the right line, so I hauled off and kicked him as hard as I could. Son of a... Oh, my God! Oh, he's limping around and jumping. And all. He hadn't put the metal shin guard on because it was a rehearsal. So I hurt Wilbur, felt very bad. And then it came to actually doing the take, and I say my line, and then like, kick him. And they're like, no, no, no. This is where you really kick him. Okay.
Enough about Wilbur. Let's hear about Mr. Ed. Don't tell me he didn't really talk.
I would never take that from your childhood. Unfortunately, I had to learn how they made him talk, but
how'd they make him talk? Like, all right.
Now, see, you said you didn't want me
I
to
did. I was
you.
kidding. I was joking. It's just spoiler alert. There you go. The horse didn't talk.
Well, if you want the studio version, they put peanut butter on his lips. If you want what I witnessed, they had a little strap go underneath his tail. And when they wanted him to talk, they pulled that strap and he would do his talking.
All right. So no animals, asterisk, were hurt.
They didn't hurt him. It wasn't an electric shock or anything, but it just made him a little uncomfortable, I guess. Wilbur.
Wait, didn't I see in your book you hung out with Flipper too? So you hung out with all the big stars age.
Even Salty the Seal. I didn't put a picture of him in my book, but they were going to do us, with the success of Flipper and everything. I remember I was in Florida and the guy drove me out to the beach with his seal and the whole story and everything. And we jumped into the water and the seal just started swimming off to open ocean. And you saw these eyes get about this big and he's up and down the beach. Come on back. Come on. And he did eventually. But man, when he first hit that water, he was just a rocket out to sea.
Well, if you were a seal, what would you do?
Hey, give up show business? Come on.
I want to talk about like in your book where you got like 1 million pictures.
You read my book. No, don't tell. There's only a little over 500 pictures.
But what impressed me about that, like if you made if you were a kid actor now and then in a few years you made that, it wouldn't not be as impressive. But what I mean is like we all have cameras on our phone, but to have like, you're talking like 60s, right? I mean 70s, right? And you're like to have this many photos.
Late 50s,
but not just any photos. I mean, you have photos of the events. I mean, I'm sure there's 1 million events. Maybe you didn't have a camera, but you captured so much of your childhood on camera, or someone did. I was going to ask who.
I was going to say, I didn't capture it. And actually, my sisters and I would give my mom a hard time because she always had, if she didn't have one Minolta around her neck, she had two. And yes, this was back in the time when you went to take a picture. What is the f-stop? What is self-focusing? Well, I mean, it took a while to take a shot, and you might take one or two and then send it off. And 10 days, 2 weeks later, you would get the roll back that said, oh, no, it's all exposed, nothing there. But yeah, my mom loved to take pictures, and she had a lot of them, and she couldn't throw any of them away, even if they were that bad or anything. So we had boxes and boxes when she passed away, and I tried to split it up between my sisters and myself. My sister that lives in Hawaii, the humidity and everything there made all the pictures stick together. My other sister, and she and her husband loved to travel a lot. Anyway, that's what started happening. They started sticking. Rats started getting into them and chewing on them. So I started going through them and saying, well, let me see if I can save some of the ones I really like. And there are some with people that I know are really famous and I don't even, I don't know their names. I'm not good with names. I never claimed to be.
Maybe now with AI, you can scan them and put them in the ChatGPT and it can tell you who it is.
Oh, I love you can put a picture in the address book. I think it was, like you said, being a very small kid and having everybody come up and go, hi, and shaking your hands. And I had so many names thrown at me that my brain just said, okay, we're going to forget about that part of the world. And the exact opposite with my mom. She could remember everybody's name and how they were connected with everybody else. And she had a fabulous memory that way.
But it's awesome that your mom took so many pictures.
I know.
Kids,
I wasn't able to thank her the way I should. Hopefully I did in the book because that book wouldn't be possible without her and all her pictures.
I know my kids, like we go to Disney World and I'll take so many photos, right? And then I'll spend more time on the album than we did on the trip. And they hate it while we're doing it. But afterwards, everyone always appreciates it afterwards. No one, no one wants to take a picture while it's happening. But like later, everyone's like, oh, so great that we have this.
You know, I didn't really know my dad at all. I get to see him in movies and TV things that pop up. But they had the old, you know, two negatives on either side and you put it in and it's almost like 3D and stuff. I mean, they have some of those old ones that are just, I love it. It's fascinating to look at.
Do you ever like try and track down, or do you have a collection of like hard media of the stuff that your dad did?
I know because everything's online now. I didn't see a lot of the things until recently that he did. I remember late night one night watching with a young lady and a late show came on and I'm like, oh, look at that. Who's that actor? I know that actor. What's his? And she just looked at me and kind of went, isn't that your dad? Like, oh, yeah. Did I mention it was the 70s? Maybe that's had something to do with it.
I bet you could hunt down. It'd be cool to have like a collection of on DVDs or something like that.
Yeah, I've gotten a feeling, like I said, I have some wonderful fans. I got this great little club called Darby's Darlings and Dudes. And they have sent me, you know, Rin Tin Tins that he was in, The Lone Ranger. They sent me a great Lassie that my sister and my dad were in together. So it's fun. It's like seeing, well, even when I look at old things that I did, they're like looking at old home movies. You're like, oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I mean, that's one cool thing is that you have all that. And even of all the stuff that you did, it's just amazing that like just naturally all these things, you know, are captured. Well, since you mentioned Lassie, that reminded me, I had a question. So when you're younger and you're experiencing this fame, there's other people experiencing similar fame at the same time, maybe like a John Provost or Bill Mumy or somebody like that. Who
You must have talked to John.
I did talk to John. John was awesome, and his wife, also awesome, and Billy, actually. And like, who were you hanging out with? Like, is it like them and others, or like, did you have like your crew of like people going through this as well, or you never saw anyone?
No, not at all. I'd see him if they'd come to the set and work. You know, that's how I first met Ron Howard, Kurt Russell. You know, we would have these young guys come through. I just got to hook up again with Richard Dreyfuss. We did a Big Valley together. But no, back then, especially living up in Bel Air, which was beautiful, had a fabulous view and everything, but you didn't really hang with the neighbors. Everybody's behind big gates and all. And I was working. I did get to, we had our own studio at Sunset and Western, which was an old silent film studio with just 4 big sound stages. But when I wasn't working there, I could go to the big Fox lot in on Pico, which is where the big main studio was. It used to be all of Century City. And when I would go there, I would go into the schoolhouse, the Fox schoolhouse. So there I had Billy Mumy. I had Angela Cartwright because they were both doing Lost in Space. And of course, Angela's sister, Veronica Cartwright, played on our show for a couple of years. And then I would have anybody under 18. Christine Farrar, she was the last one to be under contract at Fox. She was in that schoolhouse with us. From Land of the Giants, from Dr. Doodle. Anyway, any show that was being shot at Fox, I would get to hang with those kids. But it's like, no, we didn't go do things later and hang out. And that's one of the reasons I'm really proud. I'm on a few boards, organizations for child actors. And one through what used to be called the Actors Fund, which is now the Actors Community, is looking ahead. And I got to help start it with Paul Peterson 22 years ago. And what we do is we bring child actors together and give them a community. Like you said, who do you hang with? Because, you know, when you get thrown back into a regular school, I got beat up bad when I went back to a regular school because you don't have that social knowing what's going on. And other kids are jealous. And listen, I'm sure all of us have been through high school. We know sometimes it can't be the best experience. So what we do is, we do everything from like, you know, painting bus stops and going to the SAG after a home for elderly actors to paintballing and bowling. But just to give them a community, because so many of the kids also are taken out of school and homeschooled. So they have their only social connection, unfortunately, today is the phone. And somehow doesn't quite translate when you're supposed to do a scene and interact with real people. So, we do what we can, but it's called Looking Ahead. Great organization.
That's awesome. Do you also do stuff still or did with Minor Consideration?
Yes, with Paul Peterson, the patron saint of child actors. And he does more on the legal side. He's been recognized by the UN for his child labor laws. Yeah, Paul is great. He did little things like make sure that the teacher that they have on the sets, especially since you only have 3 hours a day of schooling, is actually a certified teacher. He and that organization, A Minor Consideration, got a lot of laws changed. They're hoping to get a few more because there are still some states that don't have, they don't watch out for the kids. Let me just put it that way.
There's still states. So when you think of like the Coogan law, that's more specific areas.
And the right to work laws and stuff. Yeah, the Coogan, that was a great thing that came in. That's one thing Looking Ahead does is track down people that have hidden Coogan money. For those of you who don't know what Coogan money is, Jackie Coogan was famous because he was a very, very famous child star, made a lot of money. And by the time he was 18, his parents managed to spend it all. And it was a big deal back then. So they finally came up with the rule, okay, we're going to put a little bit of your money away for you until you're older. But there's still a lot of challenges in that. And I don't want to get too much on the political thing here, but it's one of the things I've tried to fight for. That is, if you have a child working on a movie set, by law, the parent has to be there within eyesight and earshot of the kid at all times. Now, that doesn't always happen. That sometimes rarely happens. But they have to be at the studio, at least there. So you're telling an adult they have to be somewhere, but we're not going to pay you for it. But this is where you have to be. And, it's silly. And yeah, so some of the parents need to take, I use the word take. I think they should be earning the money. If you're told you have to be somewhere, then they should get some money. So that's their money. And this is the kids' money. That's my soapbox. I'll get off it now. And
I mean, if your kid's working, then you should work. You can work for your kid. That's fine.
Yeah, and if you set it up in advance,
Right.
and do it. The main problem with and I've been on the SAG-AFTRA Young Performers Committee. Like I said, I've done a lot for try to help kid actors because I lost too many friends growing up. The people young kids on shows that just couldn't handle it when the spotlight was turned on. Fame is a very addictive drug. Very addictive. It makes you feel, everybody wants to be your friend. Everybody's calling. And then all of a sudden it gets taken away. The one difference is you can't go down to the local street corner or pharmacy or someplace and buy yourself some fame unless you do something really outrageous to bring that back on you. And that's usually not a good thing.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially in your heyday, you're talking 30 million people and then the show ends. And a lot of times, a lot of actors can't get another role because they're stuck in that role, right? And stuff like that. And it sounds like, did you have the benefit of your mom didn't need your money? Because I know a lot of times, like it sounds like they need the kids' money. And so that's where they kind of siphon it off.
Yeah. No, I was happy to share with the family, and she gave us such fabulous experiences and everything else. She was not a great businesswoman, and that's a whole other story. And that's how I met Paul Peterson. And fortunately, the Jackie Coogan law, which I didn't even know about at the time. And anyway, that's a whole other story we could get into.
All right, we'll do it another time. So, all right, so
yes, we like to focus on the positive just for the heck of it.
For the heck of it. All right. So you're getting hooked. You're 6 months old. You're hooked. You're like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. On Playhouse 90. It's the best thing. And then I need more. And like, would you mind sharing the story? Because I do like the story is of how you got the role of Israel. Well, it wasn't originally that, but like on the show, Daniel Boone.
I think I've told that story before. And I'm just staring up here on my wall, the picture when you said, all right, you're hooked, you can do this. And it's me doing a commercial, maybe a year old or so, I don't know how old, 2 years, but pouring milk into a purse that's in a shopping cart full of food. And it was obviously from grocery store or something. I got to pour the milk and they're all over. And I must have in my little brain said what I've said many times on the set. They're actually paying me to do this. I like this. So like I said, that's why I'm still doing it. All right. You want to hear the lederhosen story?
I do.
You want to hear the day my mom bust into the room with the lederhosen Come on, Darby, get dressed. They want to see you down at Fox. They're doing the movie The Sound of Music, and the youngest character is a boy. So quick, get into those knee-high socks and all. And we race down Bel Air Road all the way to Fox Pico and singing Edelweiss, Stow a Deer, getting ready for it. And like I say, my mom was a wonderful mom. Brought up 3 kids in a time when women weren't even supposed to. And the one thing is she was always late. She always had a ton of things going on and was always late, which caused a lot of problems. So that day we were late and we pull into 20th Century Fox. Gate goes up, car goes in. She pulls up. There was like a little 3-story building that was casting. Pulls up in front of that. Quick, get out, run in. They're waiting for you. I'll park the car. I'll come get you, but just go. I'm like, okay. And I, ran out of the car. I'm 5.5. Ran out, or just, I was probably then just barely 5. Anyway, I run in. I see a line of kids. I get in the line of kids. The secretary that's taking people's names at the head of the line just kind of leans out, looks, and come here. I'm like, yeah. Go around the line, go to her. She goes, what's your name? Darby Hinton. She goes, yeah. Wait right here 1 minute. I'm like, okay. She waits, brings the next kid out, takes me in immediately into this room full of very big people, large people, huge desk. I mean, this was, obviously, and I'm sure she did it as a joke. Here's a kid in the lederhosen. And I sat there and talked with him, and the big guy calmed him down. No. What's your name? What are you doing? And I guess one of the things I did too, I had just done a wagon train and I had lost my front tooth that time, in the middle of it. So the studio had to give me what they call a flapper, which was a false tooth to put in so the shots would match because they always shoot out of order. So I had that in. I said, well, I don't know, but if you want me, you can have me like this. And then I ducked under the table, pulled a tooth out, or you can have me like this with a big toothless thing, which really, I got him going. Anyway, I left the office and I went in the hall and there was my mom running up and down the hall. Where are you? Where have you been? They've been waiting for you. I can't believe you did this. And I'm like, I don't know, Mom, but whatever's in there, I just got it. And it was the Daniel Boone show. They were casting Israel. And another kid did get the part of Israel that day. And even for the pilot, he was Israel. But they wrote in another son, Nathan Boone. So I started off literally as Nathan Boone. And I have comic books. I have some of the pictures from when it was first coming out and being publicized that Fess Parker was doing a new series. And you see the 2 sons. Halfway through the pilot, we had a great director, George Marshall, old time, directed a lot of things. He'd have that big cone and he would yell at people. And for some reason, I got along with him well. I would sit on his lap while he was yelling at people. And he wrote a scene in the pilot where a flaming arrow goes over it and it hits the powder keg where all the women are reloading the rifles and making more shot. And I run out from the wagon where all the kids are hiding, pull out the flaming arrow, stomp on it, run back. Becky runs over, oh, Nathan, and gives me a big hug. Well, I guess they saw this in the dailies. Dailies are back when you had to print film. They would just run what they shot the next day just to make sure they got everything. There wasn't a hair in the lens or, that they actually have it all. And I guess they saw and said, wait a minute, if this kid can do all that, why do we need the older kid? And right in the middle of the pilot, my name was changed to Israel, and the other son kind of drifted away. Even though if you ever watched the pilot, the last shot when Boone is walking out from the fort with his family, there's a young boy on either side along with Veronica.
Oh, man. A moment for Bobby Horan, right? All right.
Which I never got to run into him later or anything. I don't know if he holds it against me.
Well, I'm sure. I don't know. He couldn't compete with your charms. So it's got to be but that's business, right? You never know. It's like,
it wasn't my decision.
Yeah,
I didn't let's get rid of this guy. I just
not
did
your
what
fault.
they
You were
told me.
adorable and could do all the stuff.
I just did what they tell me. That's the story, the life of an actor.
I think according to Bobby's IMDb, he did a few other things and then that was it. So they just decided to consolidate. Probably, was it easier for them just to have Veronica and you, just 2 kids versus probably the more kids?
It was cheaper, that's for sure.
For sure.
I mean, the real Daniel Boone had 11 kids.
Yeah.
That would have been more than the Brady Bunch. So, yeah. And then, once Veronica wasn't on the show anymore, then it was just, I was the kid. And then the last season, if you watch it, I did put a couple pictures in the book. Jodie Foster and another young man were going to come on and be the young kids because the writers started thinking that Israel was getting a little too old to be that young kid in, peril anymore.
I saw that. So that was pretty cool that Jodie Foster became part of that. There's so many like names that are part of this iconic series. I did see you talking about, or maybe it was in the book too, like when you found out why Veronica was removed from the show, that's unfortunate. That I could see someone holding a grudge for.
And well, listen, Veronica didn't. She's gone on and done wonderful things.
Yeah, she did good.
My kids were just watching the original Alien last night. They came in, and my kids are all grown. Anyway, yeah, no, actually, I found that out at the 50th anniversary of the first airing of Daniel Boone. We did it up at Fess's Vineyard. No, I'm sorry. That was the second thing we did up at the Vineyard. There goes the first one we did up there. Fess had saved all the, like, especially the black and white and all the things that were on film and deteriorating quickly. And he had them saved and digitized and make them. That's why they look great. And we went up there to celebrate that. Veronica and I went out to dinner later. And, they'd always told me why Veronica left was because her parents asked for too much money. That's certainly what they told my mom. And that's what she heard. And that's what, so that's what I always thought. And even though I would run into Veronica every now and then in town, and she did play with Richard, actually, with Dreyfuss. We didn't talk about it, but they never explained it on the show or anything else. At dinner, she finally goes, "No, Darby, that's not it at all. We loved that show. I would have stayed on that show. It was great." Fess had such a wonderful working environment and everything. She did a scene with a young actor called Fabio, who wasn't that young at the time. She was just under 18. He was 20 something anyway. And they did a kissing scene, and I'll let you her tell that story. Becky Boone, Pat Blair, came in when that aired and said, no. I am not old enough to have a daughter that is the love interest. Either she goes or I go. And that's how she left the show. And I had no idea. I mean, obviously, it kept my mom from asking for more money for a few years, but
it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, it was, it's nice to have a sister on the show.
Yeah. Who cooler than Veronica Cartwright? One of the Cartwright sisters. Pretty cool. So Fess was awesome. I take it. He was in Old Yeller as well. Was it difficult for him being Davy Crockett? And did you know him as Davy Crockett? Where you're like, oh my God, Davy Crockett. And now he's Daniel Boone.
I didn't watch a Davy Crockett show until up in Hole in the Cave, Illinois, where they actually shot Davy Crockett on the riverboat, where the pirates in the cave, and we were there. And they posthumously wanted to give an award to Fess. And Fess's family, Ashley and Eli, asked if I would go accept the award for him. I'm like, okay, oh, yeah, sure, anything for Pa. I went and did it. And then that night on the big screen outside, they showed it. The reason I hadn't seen it before is so many people would come, oh, I love you and Davy Crockett. You're great at Davy Crockett. Yeah, I'm like, no, it's not. So I don't know. I never bothered to watch this show. And it was interesting when I did watch it. And of course, it was very good. But it was like, wait a minute, that's my Pa. What's he doing with, But no, I did not know him. I did not know him at all. Rosie Greer, because he was part of the fearsome foursome and football and all that. He I knew when he came on. Jimmy Dean, I'd heard legends, but that was...
Yeah, Jimmy Dean, who went on to make the sausages.
Right, yes.
I rewatched an episode yesterday just to get in the mode. I watched the episode with Ben Franklin.
Ah, okay.
It just randomly
I think we were sued or outlawed, or Fox was, by, it's in my book. The facts and figures go out, by one of the city councils for how inaccurate Daniel Boone was to true history. Yes, of course, we saved George Washington and good old Ben.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, because I think in real life they never met, but maybe. But this was a whole episode where they took on the British through some fake, what do they call it? Fake money. Counterfeit. Thank you.
Counterfeiting. The printing press.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun because the actor playing Benjamin Franklin, that's what he did. He went around the country and would give lectures and talk. So he knew every single thing about Benjamin Franklin. And it was fascinating getting to work with him, and and he would tell me stories and things that actually happened, and you'd be like, that's incredible. I mean,
Yeah,
some
that's
of our
awesome.
forefathers, Fess would do that up at the winery on 4th of July. And he let me come up and read it a few times. But he read what all the signers of our Constitution, everybody that signed it, he would read about how they all ended up. And most of them were either hunted down and shot, or their houses were burned. And it's kind of sounding like today. But yeah, they were, they didn't, sign the Constitution and everything is rosy and wonderful. Our forefathers were pretty amazing.
Did you have some other favorite famous guest stars? I mean, I don't mean the actors. I mean, like from history. We talked about
From history.
We talked about Ben Franklin, but like,
well, Johnny Appleseed was a lot of fun, and then to have Miller, in the meantime. Oh yeah, him, and I can't remember the name of the episode, but my darlings and dudes will remember the one with Frosty the Snowman, Burl Ives. That was a really fun guest star that we had on that. When I watch some of the old shows, which I don't do that often because my wife, who is English and never saw a Daniel, would think I was crazy if I sat there and kept watching myself. But for the darlings, we run them every now and then. And also people like, oh, I didn't know Bewitched Husband was my school teacher.
Yeah, you had tons of people. So, I mean, imagine like when it's the most popular show, people are stopping by.
And they love Fess. It wasn't only the actors, but the athletes. Because Fess, he was 6'7". He would only admit to 6'6" and a half. He didn't want to seem really tall or, So all the actors would talk, and then he would bring on great athletes. Rayford Johnson, Woody Strode. And so I got to meet a lot of them too. That was fun.
As people kind of came and went on the show as a kid, is it like, oh, okay, Veronica's not here anymore? You know what I mean? Or, like, or this guy was hanging with Daniel Boone and now he's not anymore. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. Like, is it clear to you what's happening at the moment? Or is it like kind of look back and you're like, oh yeah, that person was like there for 2 seasons.
No, nobody's prepared for that. And that's why we try to look out for some of these kid actors and maybe show them where the pitfalls are before they hit them. Because like I said, 5.5 to 12, pretty formative years, working with great people and being on the lot. You pull up to the guard and you wave and the gate goes up and you go down and it's a safe environment. I mean, I'm 7 years old, 8 years, I'd be driving my mom's Cadillac around the lot. But it was just saying, and the ladies in the commissary, they were always sweet and nice. And there was always something fun set to go visit. I mean, when they did, come on, Darby, with Raquel Welch and a great friend I got to work with later, Stephen Boyd, Inner Space. No, that was the remake. I can't remember what the original was called. You know what I'm talking about?
Fantastic Voyage?
Where they shrunk him down and put him inside the body. And they
Fantastic Voyage?
That's it. Fantastic Voyage. Yes. Even as a young man, Raquel Welch in a white, tight spacesuit looked pretty good, I got to say. So you're asking me, was it rough? I found out driving down the 405 through the Sepulveda Pass in the back of my mom's station wagon. And she was like, well, it looks like we're not going back to Boone. Huh? Yeah, no, they're not going to do any more of them. Okay. You don't know what that means. What that means is you're cut off from a big part of family that you don't even get to say goodbye to. Like I said, it wasn't only actors. In Fess, I stayed close to and all the way to the very end. And everybody I'd see, Veronica, I still see. But not back then, you're off and you go in different direction. But like I said, it was even the waitresses in the commissary that you couldn't say, thanks and goodbye. No, the gate's down. Now when you go on an interview or something, you have to stop at the gate. What's your name? Yeah, this used to be my home. Okay, thanks. So it's rough. And, fortunately, I got to keep working and I had some strong people in my life that let me know, that's what happens. Next, the show goes on.
Yeah, you continue to act to this day. So yeah. I'd like to highlight the Salem Rapist on Days of Our Lives. It's a good one.
Gee, thanks for highlighting that one. That didn't get me in trouble in a number of places. I walked into the Beverly Hills because my wife back then kind of thought the red zone meant it was a special place for her to park. So I had to go into the police station to try to settle all the parking tickets. And the lady officer was at the front desk looking down and like this. She's like, yeah, can I help you? You're the rapist. The policemen around her started going for their guns, moving in on me. I'm like, no, wait. That's no. Yeah, that was an interesting time.
You've been on a bunch of cool stuff. You were on both Magnum PIs.
Only a few years apart.
Yeah.
Only about 40 years apart. Yes, I got to do both Magnums.
I'm a Detroit guy, so I got the blue hat. That's my thing. And then, the Fall Guy.
I did a couple of those. I did a lot of things with Lee Majors, starting with Big Valley, the bold ones. Yeah, and Fall Guy and stuff.
Very cool. I talked to Heather Thomas. That was fun. And then
she's very nice. Yes.
Very sweet. Yes. New Gidget with Dean Butler. I love Dean.
and the new Mike Hammer. That was interesting too.
Oh, look at all the news. Is it funny? Like you're around long enough.
like some old clothes. I finally come back in fashion.
Lois. Superman. Lois and Clark. I mean,
I'm doing a play now. Actually, I'm actually directing the play now because we just moved. They came to me years ago when I stepped in and did a play because I didn't do that many plays. Television, as you can see, television, movies. You're in, you're out. You shoot the day and it's over. Plays, they would do it over and over. I'm like, why? But I had to fill in for somebody once. Another long story. And I had a few days to put the play together, and I did it, and it came out great. And it was wonderful. And this lady, very nice lady, comes backstage with, I have this project I think you'd be really good for. Now, it's only going to be 3 performances because it's very experimental. But we're going to do it up at Greystone Mansion, which is the Doheny estate, until very recently, still the largest estate in Beverly Hills, 52 rooms, indoor bowling alley, the whole. And it's where all these murders and this drama took place. We're going to tell the story in the house with the audience following people room to room. Now, that sounds interesting. And Tamari was doing that at the time. That was the only other one. And then there was a wedding one. So I said, okay, I'll do it for 3 performances. Like I said, I'm doing it again. 22 years later, that play kept going. But now we're doing it in this will be the first time we're doing it on the USC campus in the Doheny Library, which is still a big marble modern, not modern back then in the 20s modern place, but it's a wonderful play.
Very cool.
Yeah, 22 years doing that play.
That's a good run.
It is with fun people.
Son of Flubber. That was a fun one I saw. Fred McMurray.
Yes. The Disney ones were fun. I actually got that part because I was at Disney doing some interview. And I just ran into an actor who goes, you remember we were at Disney together doing an interview. But anyway, I was there and Walt walked into the commissary. And he was like, and my mom's like, there, go say hi to Walt. Go. And I'm like, what? Yeah, go say hi to him. I'm like, oh, okay. So I walk over and hi, go tell him you'd like to work for him or something. So I'm like, okay. So I go over, hi, I'm Darby. I'd really like to work for you. And I was kind of shy. And he goes, well, I don't know, son. You look a little young. Can you carry dialogue? Well, yeah, I'm strong. I can carry anything. I didn't know what dialogue was. And so he laughed and stuff just like you did. Well, okay, go off to wardrobe. And that was Son of Flubber.
That's awesome. I remember when I was young, someone's like, do you eat red meat? I'm like, no. Well done. I was just I didn't know. It's like, rare. Okay, so you got like tons of stuff going on now too. Like Was Once a Hero, Sod and Stubble. So these are like new. This is
But yeah, Was Once a Hero, very proud of. The movie is all kind of a tribute to a good buddy, Johnny Crawford, who was a young one in The Rifleman. And I did a movie with him called Bill Tillman and the Outlaws. And unfortunately, he was starting to suffer from his Alzheimer's and his dementia. We actually shot the principal. We shot his stuff a year before we shot the principal, just because he was kind of fading that quick. So then we did the writer, Dan, which is great, who also wrote that one, but he wrote this because also his grandfather went through dementia. And so this is called, Was Once a Hero. Memory fades, but courage doesn't. So that's a fun one. That's streaming now. Sod and Stubble is based on the book Sod and Stubble, about a couple that went out and settled and what it meant to go settle the new land, which is another great story. Contested Planes at the beginning of the year. I'll go back and shoot that. Cowboy
Killer?
Cowboy Killer. How could I forget Cowboy Killer? Hopefully that's going to be a good laugh for everybody. It's a very campy Cowboy Killer, a love story.
What else would it be? Oh, as I jot down, there was two other things of note that I circled that I thought were really cool from your book. One is that you got to go to Washington D.C. with
Art Linkletter.
when Maureen McCormick and Clint Howard, and you met President Richard Nixon.
Yep.
That was pretty cool. You got to hang out with the other people are cool too, but Marsha Brady.
I know. And she didn't talk about the kiss I stealed in her book between the schoolhouse and the. Anyway, she doesn't want to talk about it. I won't either. Yeah, and that's another, like you talked about, seeing these old things. I bugged Art Linkletter, who was a neighbor. He was 2-3 houses down in Bel Air. And Art, can I get a copy of that? That would be really great. Oh, I don't have a copy. You'll have to talk CBS. I talked to CBS. Oh, we don't have a copy of that. I talked Clint Howard, who was doing General Ben at the time. I'm like, come on, Clint, you have, I mean, Ron certainly has connections. Can't we get a copy of this tape? Nobody had it. It was done. I'm like, oh, okay, fine. Da, da, da. Then one day I'm on Facebook and, my group, Darby's Darlings and Dudes. And this guy goes, oh, you were really great in that Kid's Eye View of Washington. And I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, here, I taped it. You want a copy? And so I actually got a copy of it, and it was so great. And then I brought Kurt on, and we sat down, and for the Darlings, we did a whole talked about it while we screened it. And it even had the Howard Johnson commercials in it. I mean, it was like the original.
That's amazing. Howard Johnson's. Oh my God, fried clams. Nothing better.
The orange roof.
Yes.
Orange and turquoise. Yeah.
Speaking of orange, growing up Israel. Darby, thanks for hanging out with me and sharing all these cool stories. You're awesome.
You're welcome. It's a lot of fun. Thanks for reading the book. So you knew the right questions to ask.
Thanks for all the memories.
You never know. I did a thing in Malabar Farms with Dan Haggerty, who was, Grizzly Adams, who was like the big brother I always wanted. We hung out together. And Johnny Crawford. It was just the three of us. And they called up from the local TV station. Hey, we want to interview guys. Is okay? I go, okay, sure. We'll sit down and interview. And we sat, I think I have this reel somewhere, but it's been deleted a lot of places. We sat down there and the announcer comes up and the first thing, oh, hi, thank you for coming here. And the first thing he does is go to Johnny and go, so how was it working with Fess Parker? And Johnny could laugh and he pulled, he's a great guy, very tall. And he came to me, poor Dan, I think he wet himself. He was laughing so hard that this guy didn't have a clue who any of us were. So I thank you for doing your homework, for having good notes. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. It was a lot of fun.
Talk to you later.